What's up, Street Pilots, and welcome back to another video. So what you see underneath me is actually my bobber. And you know the cocks are on, so this is going to be a pretty sweet video. So what we got in front of us today is a 2021 Scout bobber that is a little bit more modified than the one in the series. We're having a little bit of a pause with that right now because we're waiting for our local tuner to free up, source a power commander so that we can coordinate a tune install video and a dyno video and basically have an explanation on how dynos and tunes work. However, in the meantime, we got some parts. So what we have in front of us today is this new product that's coming from OTB. What we have in here is a fancy schmancy part that I had mentioned in a previous video. So actually I'm unboxing it in front of you guys right now. And we got this. And where this is going is we are going to have a see-through clutch cover. Now, I'm going to install it freehanding it. You guys are going to see me struggle because I'm not following any instructions as per always, and we're going to figure it out. That way I can, layman's terms, explain the best way that you guys can do it without instructions or with the instructions that I'm providing. And this part is now available on the Dean Speed website, which will be linked below. And I will have the link in the description as well so that you guys can access this part. But I want to showcase the install, how good it looks, and basically showcase it in front of you guys. Now, another point that we're going to address here is that there is some deviation between the Scout bobbers from 2020 and before to 2021 and newer. So pay attention to this video because there will be some very pertinent parts in regards to our primary covers. So we'll visit that chapter a little bit later. And then lastly, right now, since we're waiting out on content, we got a bunch of parts for the 2019 GSXR. So what is happening with that bike in the background is that we bought a bike that was dropped by the previous customer, or correction, by the previous owner. And they did a really piss poor job of repairing it. And we are going to try to resto-mod it, for lack of better terms, and make it look clean. So if you guys want to see the GSXR content, it is coming up probably in the next couple weeks. And we'll be showcasing everything we're doing on it. So without further ado, let's begin. All right, let's talk about what's in front of us. So as OTB states, is that this cover will fit on all pre-2025 Scout bobbers. Now that's going to be your Scout Bobber 20. However, Scout Bobber 60, which you see in front of you, this will fit only 2020 and older with an asterisk. After 2021, what Indian did, and we presume this is for cost savings, is that they went from a two-piece primary cover. As you can see that you'll have fascia bolts here, so this will be one piece, and the back piece, they went to a single piece primary cover. Now what the OTB clutch cover does is it will replace your outside piece of your primary cover. However, it does not replace the whole unit. Now, what is the nice part is that these covers are interchangeable. So if you're really interested in getting the OTB see-through clutch cover, the thing is you will need to just source a pre-2020 underside of a primary cover and they will mount up to each other. What I'm lucky with is that my friend Micah Dean from Arizona has a crashed Scout bobber in his shop. So he sent me out this cover in replacement for mine. We're going to do a trade and we'll send this one back down to him. And I'm going to utilize this Scout bobber two-piece primary cover, and I will demonstrate how we're going to swap this onto here, and then we're going to swap this as one piece over to here. Now, during the process of this, there's a couple of things you need to know how to do. A, you need to know how to do an oil change, and B, if you're using used pieces and you do not trust your gaskets that are on these covers, I would highly recommend getting a new one and knowing how to press it in carefully and how to deal with gaskets. Outside of that, it's going to be a pretty simple job. We're going to swap one to the other after draining the oil, and then we'll start her up and watch it be fancy. What you see in front of me is a 2-piece primary cover. What we're going to do is we are going to remove the top portion, then we're going to replace it with the see-through OTB prototypes cover, after which we're going to replace your clutch cable arm from this piece into the see-through one, and I'll show you once I flip it over. And then normally you would do this after draining your oil. You would just do the outer piece on your bike. Now in the cases with the mono piece, you will have to basically take it off, swap it out, and do it here. So whichever way is going to be the easiest for you. I'm going to show it basically on a bench to make it as convenient as possible. The front piece of the primary cover is connected by a multitude of 5mm Allen bolts. So let's get those out now. Now some of you may wonder, why did I choose OTB? I saw their air cleaners, and they have some of the coolest looking air cleaners for Chiefs. So during the process of my research, I reached out with Dean Speed to see if they had anything available for the Scouts, as we have an internal under the tank air cleaner, and they told us that they were working on these see-through clutch covers. Now they sent this to me a couple months back, but I was quite busy with my military promotion courses and other things happening in my life, and I got a little bit behind on my content material. But here we are today trying to put this together to make my bike even cooler and hopefully bring a new unique piece to the market. Additionally, what I really like about companies such as OTB Prototypes is that they offer a 1-year warranty, and they really stand by their products. They are so confident in their products that they basically never have faults, and all the dealers that do work with their products really love carrying them, as carrying a product that has no faults is one of the biggest claims a manufacturer can have. And I really do appreciate that as a fellow manufacturer of parts, to work with somebody that's not only producing amazing parts, but has high confidence in their parts and offers a good support warranty. In the Harley world, what I know is that there is a big community of not only buying and selling parts, but there's a lot of guys that trade parts from one variation of a Harley to another. And I'd be really happy to see that within the Indian bike community, especially for those of you guys that are looking for the old 2-pieces, to trade them with somebody who may not be looking for them, who has a mono piece such as I do, and help your fellow rider out. Especially like for myself, I have this super awesome Dean Speed skull clutch covering that I'm no longer going to use. So for me getting the help here, I am going to be paying that forward to a fellow friend of mine. All right, just a couple more bolts left. And always, for video purposes, I break a lot of these bolts loose beforehand, so you guys don't have to struggle watching me turn bolts out for multiple hours. Normally, all of these jobs are much more expedient when we're not on camera, but trying to do a proper show and tell does make every job exponentially longer as we reshoot certain shots to make sure that the information passed across is proper and that everything that I'm doing is as visible as possible on camera. And I always appreciate the input, such as telling me that I needed a better microphone, to ensure that you guys are getting the best possible information from me to you. As I'm looking at these bolts, some of them look like they have remnants of red Loctite on them. I would recommend using Loctite on them again if the come with that from factory. However, in my case, I will probably be using blue if I deem so necessary. But looking at all of these, they do have red on them. All right, see if you pop off nice. Am I missing any bolts? No, I'm not. See if we're bound up anywhere. No. She should be able to just press off. Voila. Just like that. Now, if the camera can see, there is your clutch arm where your clutch cable rides. As you engage the clutch cable, you will engage your clutches. There's a little C-clip in here, and the camera will zoom in a minute. We're going to pull out the C-clip, and we're going to pull out this arm. One thing you have to take note is that there is a gasket back here that is prone to leaking on some bikes. What is awesome is OTB provides their cover with a brand new gasket, so you do not have to worry about sourcing one or reusing the one from your former primary cover. Now, let's zoom in and showcase how to remove the clutch arm. All right, as you guys can see, this is the clutch arm, and it has a little C-clip over here and a washer. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to try to pull it off with some needle nose pliers, as I do not have any C-clip pliers out here with me, and I don't presume that a lot of you guys will either. You might be able to get it off also with a small screwdriver or a pick. So let's see what we can do here. All right, we have switched over to the small flathead, seeing if I can get under it, as the needle nose pliers I have with me right now are just too fat. And if I can turn these up and pop it off, which I did by, like always, shooting it halfway across the screen. And there you are. There's a little C-clip. Now let's put that somewhere safe. Next, we're going to extract the little spacer washer, and the arm will pull out like so. Now, if the camera can see, on this is a little groove. This is where your C-clip will ride. And then I would clean up this surface here, as this is what goes through your seal. And also, my recommendation is always to apply a little bit thin level of grease to lubricate that seal over here to make sure to prolong its longevity. Now with this being done, we're going to transfer everything over. We're going to clean it up and transfer it over to the OTB prototypes clutch cover. So let's do that next. All right, so here's the see-through OTB cover, which has a little bit of oil splashed onto it. Now, OTB, they have it branded on the inside. It's obviously going to be upright. It's not going to mount upside down. The nice part is that they have it pre-drilled for the 2 dowel pins that sit on your primary cover, so it will just pop right in. Now, again, just to reiterate, here's your clutch arm. Here's a little spacer washer that we removed. And here in my hands is that little C-clip. Now, I got lucky in that video where it just sprung off and I caught it. And that usually does happen to me when I'm trying to film these videos. I forget to put my hands in certain places. But if you're trying to pry something off that you think might spring away and it's not going to injure you, key thing, it doesn't have a lot of tension or pressure, is that it's a good habit to have your hand over it. So when you pry it up, it will hit your hand and not bounce around somewhere where you will lose it. Now that we've lubricated our seal, we're going to put the clutch arm right back in there, like so. Then, with the clutch arm back in, the camera is going to zoom in and I'm going to reinstall the clips. First, we're going to put the spacer washer on, and now the C-clip. Now, this is not your typical having to use C-clip pliers. It's still a C-clip, but it's just under spring tension. So line it up to its groove, and then using a hard object and not losing it 7 times, we will press it back into its groove. Again, I'm always looking for suggestions on what people want to see next. There we go. Pressed right back in. Some people want to see more visual mods. Some people want to see some power mods. So again, comment down below and subscribe to the channel, because the growth of this channel really helps us make cooler videos, supports buying the mods so that we can show them and review them and showcase them to you guys. All right, 2 next points. Number 1, we're going to attach this, but while we were realigning things here off camera, we had a question from the audience. Can this cover be changed out to a different color one? Black, blue, pink, whatever. Considering the fact that it's mounted with Allen keys, I would assume that this piece is removable and interchangeable with other ones, as red will suit my bike, but for some certain cases, it may not suit it. I will reach out to OTB and I will post the answer in the pinned comment, whether this cover is interchangeable, as in referencing the red trim. But looking at the fact that it is mounted via Allen bolts, it may either be interchangeable or you may be able to order one in a specific color. Now, moving on. Dowel pins make life super easy. There's one here and one here. It's only going to mount one way. Therefore, we're going to roll it into place. Make sure that everything is there. Get it pretty closely lined up. And those dowel pins, what they do is they're going to guide us on guide pins, and they're going to ensure that we're going to seat. Now, before you do that, ensure that the seal is not damaged. Ensure that the seal is clean after removing it, or if you have replaced it with a new seal, double check that it's all seated right and lubricate your new seal to ensure that you're not going to have any seepage or leakage. In our case, I cleaned it off camera and it is lubricated. And now we're going to ensure that everything seats. Crack, bang. Perfect. Now we have 2 baggies of hardware. Part of the hardware is for the cover for the portion that is the secondary attachment piece to the cover, and the other baggie of bolts is for the fascia cover. My recommendation here is going to be start all the bolts and then thread them in a star pattern to ensure that this sits down nice and level and not get pinched on one side. I do not actually know the torque spec, so like always in all of my videos, good and tight is the way to go. Use common sense. Remember how much strength you use to remove the stock cover and try to approximate the strength you need to retighten it. And I'm going to toss a little bit of blue Loctite. All right, with the cover attached, we went in a star pattern. First, we snugged up all the bolts. Then we went in a star pattern to ensure that it sat nice and equal on both sides. And then I did one final pass around to make sure it's snug. Now with that, we're going to put the decorative fascia to cover up the next part of your primary. Second baggie, we're going to use some more blue Loctite, and we're going to put on these 3 Allen bolts. The thing here is these Allen bolts are going to be number 4 instead of a number 5 as you removed and on your see-through cover. I don't know why OTB used different Allen head bolts, but it actually does look quite clean, and we're going to show you the finished product at the end of the video. So stay tuned. For the next portion, as we transition over to the removal of the primary cover off my bike, we're going to do an oil change. Now, if you need to know how to do an oil change on the Indian Scout, please refer to my video, and the link will be in the description, and we will cut back when we're ready to remove the primary cover. All right, as we finished off on the last portion was the oil change. Now, with the removal of the primary cover, there is a snag. And what you guys don't see is that it's been a few hours since the last portion. However, I called Dean Speed to ask for some advice because I wasn't sure how to articulate it in the video. And essentially, the part that is important to note, if you have a factory exhaust or some other aftermarket exhaust, you will have to remove them to have the room to remove your primary cover. However, when dealing with the radical radius, you will not have to remove it, but there's still a snag with the Allen bolts that mount the primary cover to your engine housing. There's one that is not accessible easily with an Allen key. So I had to go to the shop and I had to shave an Allen key down because I'm lazy and I didn't want to remove the exhaust. So instead I took over 2 hours to go there and back and shave a single key. But I will show you what I did, and I'll show you which bolt you may get snagged on when dealing with the radical radius. But again, advisory is that you may need to remove your exhaust for this next portion if you do not have the radical radius or some other ones that give you access to the primary cover. And if you need to know how to remove and replace your exhaust, we do have a video and I'll attach it in the description. Now the camera is going to go into handheld mode and I will point out the bolt that needs to be addressed. Referencing your primary cover and referencing this top bolt, there's a bolt to the right of it that is guarded by the exhaust. And I'm going to let the camera zoom in onto it. It's right over here. And this bolt, with the curvature of the exhaust, you do not have a lot of clearance. You may have about 3/8 to half an inch of clearance to get an Allen key in there. And now I'm going to show you what I did to modify an Allen key so that it can fit. Because as soon as you can break that bolt loose, you will be able to pull it out. So right here we have a regular number 5 Allen key. It can be longer in length, but the short portion is usually about the same size. Some are longer. And we even tried a number 5 Allen socket, and it was too long to fit in behind the exhaust. So what I did is I went to my shop and I grabbed the number 5 Allen key and I trimmed it down to make it a snub nose to ensure that it would clear the exhaust so that I can just break the tension loose on, break the torque loose on that bolt and then be able to thread it out by hand. And then when I need to install it, I'm going to do it in reverse order, tightening it in by hand, and then just finish off tightening it with this snub nose Allen key. And that is just for that one upper Allen bolt. Now that we have addressed the exhaust bolt issue, next point is going to be to remove the cable tension from your clutch arm. To do so, you can either use a wrench that fits over it or an adjustable wrench and turn your clutch arm in its direction of travel. I'm trying to do this on camera, like so. And remove the cable off of it, like so. Now here, you want to take a note of the position of the clutch arm, as the new clutch arm or the clutch arm you're going to be replacing back in here does not have a master spline, so you could potentially spline it in the wrong way. Take note of it, so when you install everything back on, you're going to be in the same position. Now with the clutch arm disconnected, we're going to remove the jam nut to free up the clutch cable using a 12mm wrench. You're going to need to remove the jam nut entirely so you can sneak this down through its clearing. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing this on the fly as I'm assessing every single part of this so that you guys can see me struggle through it. But in the case that I run into a snag that I'm not prepared for, you guys will see the same snags. There we are, clutch cable is off. So all I did is I removed the nut from it and then I passed it through the tighter spacing by the cable. Now that that's ready, we're going to start removing all the 5mm Allen bolts on a time lapse, and then we'll pause once we are at the point of removing the cover. All right, now let's remove all of these Allens. No, I do not. Fantastic. Here we are. And we'll do a little quick zoom in on what we're looking at. Now that we're here, it's a good time to visually give everything an inspection, from your gears to whatever you can see on your clutch packs, just to ensure that everything is serviceable, because you don't want to do this job multiple times. Next, to ensure everything is sealed as best as we can, we're going to grab a clean rag and we're going to clean up the mating surface best we can. We're not going to be using any case bond, as there is a rubber seal that sits here versus a paper gasket. And as you can tell, there was no case bond used beforehand. So here we are, as clean as possible. We are going to be seeping some oil. That's why I have the drain plugs open in the back with the oil pan, to ensure that everything is draining downwards. And then we're going to proceed to the install. Next step, since I am using an older casing from a different bike with its used seal, or I would also do this too if I was getting a replacement seal, is that I'm going to put a small little thin layer of grease on the seal to ensure that it is revitalized and still has its good elasticity. Again, this is not silicone, but just a little thin layer of grease to lubricate the gasket. The biggest concerns you may run into if you're using somebody else's traded cover and with their used gasket is I would do a very thorough visual and physical inspection to ensure there's no tears or damage on this gasket, as that's the last thing you want to do is finish this job and then have something leak. Clean up my hands. All right. Now in my case, the one bolt that was at the top, and it's the bolt located right over here, I'm going to preemptively put it in, and by the looks of it, it's a bit of an oxidization on these bolts. So I'm going to give them a quick clean off camera and give them a little dab of blue Loctite. And then I am going to preemptively start this here, because I do not have the clearance to fully pull it out due to my exhaust. All right, we're going to preemptively get one bolt in the casing, pre-align our arm as close as we can, and now we're going to try to finagle this in without having to remove the exhaust. Now, the nice part, Now the nice part with this is if it doesn't fit, we can always remove the outer casing and align it without it to have more clearance, and then put the outer casing back on. This is why I do like this two-part cover a lot better than the modern mono piece. Now that all your bolts are started, we're going to cinch them up. Now I'm going to be using an impact gun gently and then snugging them up by hand. However, if you're not confident in the torque specs, I recommend doing this by hand. Now that it's all bolted up, we're going to quickly clean up the grease, and then we're going to start it up and make sure that there's no leaks. That's secure, secure, secure. Now we're going to go back to the adjustable wrench, turn the clutch arm back. It's actually kind of neat seeing how everything works from behind. Put our clutch cable back in, get it under tension, and we are ready to fill it up. All right, let's start her up. Make sure she's in neutral. Perfect. Now the next step is to check for any leaks. all dry, all dry, 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 more pass. Perfect. All dry. Groovy. That concludes the OTB prototypes see-through clutch cover install. Just to reiterate, if your bike is 2021 or newer, Bobber 60, and you have a mono-piece cover, you will need to source yourself an older cover. And as I showed in this video, they are interchangeable, and you are able to put the older ones onto the new bikes and then fit the see-through cover to them. And also, let me know what you guys want to see next. You guys want me to showcase how we did the air ride and do a tutorial on that. And as always, please like and subscribe and ride safe.